No sugarcoating, no spin, taking the hard knocks. We're learning from failure so you can succeed. This is the Failosophy audio and video casts with Gabe Zickerman.
In the time of chimpanzees, I was a monkey. Butane in my veins and a mouth to cut the...
Welcome, everybody, to the Failosophy Show. I'm your host, Gabe Zickerman, and as you can guess from the name, the topic is about failure and taking a look at failure in a very unflinching, uncompromising, low bullshit kind of way. Part of my contention about the world is that if you're not currently on the precipice of failure, meaning you don't see and feel a failure potential in your imminent future, you're not living your life to your fullest potential. And I'm excited to talk to various people. This is what we do every week. Talk to various people about their experiences with failure to try to get some insight, into specifically how a failure works for folks. This week, as some of you know, we recently decided to wind down my promising startup Onward, which is focused on helping people with tech addiction. And one of the things that I'm noticing about my experience, and I feel like it was the right decision, but one of the things that I notice is every couple of days, and sometimes every day, I have a moment where I question a set of decisions. Like I'll see something and it will prompt a thought for me, and then I'll be like, oh, if only we had done this, and only we had done this, and only we had done this. And it's a very interesting experience, and I don't seem to be able to shake it despite the fact that there's been, a few months. And I don't know, if that's specifically my personality or just how it is, but is one interesting observation that even after this sort of moment where you feel like you have closure, you've done something, you're still I'm still, agonizing about it. And I don't know if you sort of relate to that. Now, before we get going, just a quick reminder, you can subscribe to the Failosophy podcast on Apple, Stitcher, iTunes, Spotify, and all that good stuff. And then the goal is to come to you live on Facebook, Thursdays or Fridays, sometimes maybe both, around midday Pacific time. So, stay tuned. And if you're already following me on Facebook, you should see this pretty quickly. And so, as per usual, I want to bring on a guest. Now, this guest is an amazing person. I'm a huge fan of hers. Welcome, B. Arthur.
Okay, now I'm unmuted.
Yeah,
Hi.
that's awesome. Hi, B. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
So there have been two iconic B. Arthurs in my life, or B's Arthur in my life. B's Arthur, yeah. There have been two of them. You are of course the one that I love the most.
For you.
And you can follow B on social media on Twitter at B Arthur LMHC. So a couple of questions for you just to get started. Maybe you can introduce yourself and tell people who don't know you a little bit about you.
Well, thank you for having me. I love you so much. I do anything for you. And I know this is a professional conversation, but I just wanted to start by saying that thank you for having me. But yeah, obviously by that gushing love waterfall, I am what I like to consider a professional people person, which means I'm a therapist. So my background is as a licensed mental health counselor. I love the field. I'll do it forever. But my career kind of really its main inflection point was at the intersection of psychology and technology. So I started one of the first online therapy companies back in 2011. We were one of the first to move therapy online with video. And I did it because I was a domestic violence counselor at the time. And whenever I talked to people about what I did, people would say all these things, their opinion of therapy, and mostly it wasn't good. It was this, it was that. But then, because I was open to hearing them, I would become their de facto therapist. And I was like, I love this work so much. I know it's valuable. There is this huge stigma that exists, but people clearly still need it. How can I make it easier? The internet was really just getting popping and social and apps and stuff. And so I figured all our other secrets were online. Why not put a therapist there to help us process it? And I started a Pretty Padded Room. And we did on-demand therapy through video and interactive journal. I was doing it nights and weekends. I'm a very outsider founder. I'm from New York. I was a therapist. And yeah, I just thought it would be this like part-time counseling company I would like tinkered with and paid my student loans. And I ended up running a tech platform with no technical experience and no technical co-founder, but I still found a way to make it work. Obviously the need was there. We were in business for 5 years. We were doing, we did almost $1 million in revenue by the time we closed, actual revenue. We were in 39 states and 30 countries. I was on Shark Tank. I became the first African-American female founder in Y Combinator with that business.
Really? I didn't know that.
Really?
That's
Did you know that?
amazing. No, I
Yeah.
did not know that.
And had I known that when I applied, I probably wouldn't have. So that's
Oh,
another thing about fear and
interesting.
failure. Yeah, I
Yeah.
would have felt like it wasn't for me. You know, I'm a very outsider founder if we look at the traditional Valley profile. So for me, yeah, everything changed. We rebranded to In Your Corner. But as I mentioned, I didn't have a very strong tech team. You know, the rebrand took a lot longer than expected. We had a lot of technical debt that eventually turned into my personal debt. And by the time we got the rebrand up, Talkspace came out of nowhere in a notch, like their $8 million closing round. And so we just couldn't catch up after that. So after 5 years, we closed in 2016. I died for a while. I gained like 20 pounds. In that time, I met you and I fell in love. I had a lot of friends support me. I started writing for Forbes. And then I decided I want to finish what I started, you know, and now I'm working on my new company, The Difference, because I still believe the right talk at the right time can make all the difference.
That's cute.
And thank you. I'm good at taglines. And we provide on-demand therapy as an Alexa skill. So that's what we're doing.
That's awesome. And before we move on, I want to say hi to George Oltianu, who's said hi to us. Welcome. It's like romper room every time somebody comes on one of these shows. I'm like, you know, as a kid, I sat there desperately waiting for them to say, and
Really?
I see Gabe. No, they never said it. They never said Gabe.
They do on Instagram Live. So, you know, we all want the same things. It's just different
We
mediums.
want this acknowledgement, right?
Yes.
So you've talked a little bit about outsider founder. You mentioned that a couple of times. So so when you think about that in context, did you have a moment, you know, after as things were sort of starting to kind of hit the skids, did you have a moment where you were like, I should have known better?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a very self-taught founder in the Valley sense of the word. You know, like I'm non-technical. I still don't know how to code. I don't want to learn how to code. You know, to me, fundraising and all that stuff is business, like dumb. Like there's a lot of things that I straight up disagree with. And, but at the time, these, you know, YC gave me a kind of pedigree. You know, I could not get an investor meeting, even when we were doing 11,000 a month, like with no customer acquisition spend. Like, so I had this natural instinct from this business and certainly the passion for it. But there was just, I didn't know how to speak the language. I didn't know what a SaaS was. I didn't know what that word meant until my second or third year in. You know, I was sure when I was getting meetings, people were looking at me like I had 8 heads and I had no idea what I was talking about. Luckily, once, you know, because the first 2 years I was full time on my futon, you know, and I was still waiting tables, but that was how I paid my bills. It wasn't until I joined the Alley, which is a co-working space here in New York, and I met people who could kind of show me what this is the shape of it. And YC was very, you know, helpful to that point. But yeah, it became very clear that I didn't know the things that they knew, you know?
How did you, oh, and actually we have another like fun little comment from, I don't know, this is a very small world moment. Hello, Teresa.
Namasyani?
Yes. We also love you, Teresa. Teresa Teresa also of Hungarian heritage, and we've had many a conversation about paprika quality, which is what Hungarians do when they meet each other.
Now I want goulash.
And I think she even gave me some fancy paprika at some point, which is kind of amazing. But okay, back
Teresa,
to you.
I've never got any. I'm offended.
Okay,
but I'm so glad you're here.
I will give you some. I will give you some for both of us. And so one of the things is like, so as you were kind of going through this process and people were kind of coming at you and you realized you didn't know, like there were all these unknown unknowns or known unknowns, right? Which I'm sure started to become obvious to you. Were you at that point, how did you overcome the natural sort of instinct to run the other way from that kind of situation?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really lucky because again, I didn't know about the startup culture enough to know that I should have been acting a certain way. I can only be me. I'm a therapist. I love myself very deeply. I only ever want to be me. And also, like, I didn't do any of this to get in the good graces to be on Sand Hill Road. I didn't know about none of that. I really wanted to. I did my help desk. I was a solo founder and employee for 3 of the 5 years. I only cared about my vision of making sure that as many people as possible had therapy through my site. And also, like, I'm a really humble person. So if I didn't know something, I'd be like, what's that? What is a SaaS? Oh my God, that's exactly what we're doing. Oh, what is a marketplace? Is that what we're doing? Oh, I don't say B2C versus B2B. I say consumer versus enterprise, like very slowly. And also because, like I'm likable, like I never put on, people like me. I kind of, yeah, like people always just took me as their little sister. I'm a grown ass woman, but if you feel like, oh, B, you're just like, let me teach you something. And also just anything I've learned, even through dating, is everybody looks good and feels good doing what they're good at. So as long as you're not being like aggressive with people's time, as long as it's like, a very organic intro or reason that you're in the same room together and the person sees that you're earnest, like I don't, people like us get asked to be their advisors or mentors all the time. And it's like, no, we ain't got the bandwidth for that. But, even recently I met a young woman. I do not have the bandwidth for this, but I love what she's doing. I love how she's thinking. And if I can be helpful, I want to. I'm happy when I'm helpful. And I feel like a lot of people in our community are like that.
I think that's probably true. But so let's go back to the time when the project was sort of where you started hitting kind of real headwinds. You talked about being an outsider founder, not knowing everything. But then there's probably maybe there's a moment in your experience where you started the realization that maybe it wasn't going to work out, started to creep in. So can we talk about that transition from the part where you're an entrepreneur who is like taught to not pay attention to the naysayers, right? Like all these people are trying to be negative. And then there's a moment at which you're kind of like, oh, maybe these naysayers are right.
I'm telling you, I always say like the two things that an entrepreneur needs is to be shameless and fearless. And you just have to keep going. The thing that they don't tell you about that is like, I always say I have so much more respect for actors now because like, it's the only thing where you're expected to like put on your best self and sell something, be confident. Mm-hmm. And they say no to your face and you're expected to be gracious, and that's really painful. But to your point, entrepreneurs are also stubborn and to a certain extent delusional. And for me, when it started to kick in was after Talkspace had announced this huge round. I was still fundraising at that time because everyone said, let me see the new site, let me see the new site. So, just going in and we were still making money. Like we were doing at our peak, 51,000 a month in monthly recurring revenue. So I'm like, this is undeniable. There could be a Uber versus Lyft, David Goliath situation. But had I known this from the beginning, investors did not take me seriously. I knew they didn't take me seriously before, but a lot of times people would take meetings just because, a friend recommended me or, they hadn't looked at my deck. And, I dealt with a lot of, not sexism. I mean, yeah, a lot of sexual harassment, but I don't care. Like, a lot. I was on the CNN piece about sexual harassment. That's an everyday thing for me. Unfortunately for most women, the worst part of the sexual harassment is the sexism and the dismissiveness and they were never going to take me seriously because I'm cute and I'm nice and, I don't know. And I was pitching a business called Pretty Padded Room and just over and over realizing that like I wasn't going to, get investments from these. They weren't going to take me seriously as an investment opportunity. They would say no and then ask me to do a panel for them. They'd say no and then, ask me out to hang out all the time. And that was like, I was like, okay, I'm being seen. I'm getting these rooms. My business is not, it was just this thing. And we ran out of funding in May 29th, 2015. And that was when I had to let my C team go. But again, I just was never say die. I was like, I don't care. And I did it for 10 more months. We didn't close until April 2016. So for the next 10 months, I took on all these crazy loans. I had to pay like $15,000. I had to find that money every single month for 10 months. And it was brutal. I was paying payroll over rent, and it wasn't until, really what made me stop was, at the end of 2015, I was doing my taxes because I let Emily go. And so I had to do it myself. I hadn't kept up with Gusto. And I looked at the books and I was like, damn, all this time I've been focusing on fundraising and finding new tech talent and hiring people. We had somehow made $419,000 in 2015 with a broken site, with like all this other shit, with me totally not having my eye on the ball, just the system running as it was, our clients coming in and my therapist doing their thing. And I was like, damn, if I would have focused on getting money the old fashioned way from customers, where would we have been by now? So I got really into like the law of attraction and like, I was like, I'm going to save the company. I got this like second wind. But again, we were still like negative 20,000 every single month. So at the beginning of that year, my therapists are like, hey, where's my cut? We did a 40-60 split. Two girls who had worked for me for a long time volunteered to help me because they knew I was doing everything by myself on the admin side. And, I should have seen it coming. Because I know they did, but I think they sensed that things were winding down. These two hoes, and I could say this because like when you find out what these heifers did, these two bitches came in to the admin, stole all of our client data.
Oh, jeez.
Yep. Some of the code, created a copycat site. They did it in like 3 weeks. Wrote and like, I can't even, if you hear the whole story, it's crazy, but like wrote to my investors, wrote from their work emails to the rest of my therapists that they were quitting and I was a scammer and this and that or whatever. And they knew. And in fact, I was letting them keep their percentage of the 40-60 split until I could pay them back. And they knew that what I was going through, they knew that I was like in the process of getting evicted. They knew, and they still went out of their way to do this. They sent it from their work emails. They created this site. They wrote to my investors. They told clients who were confused, because obviously that's a low class move and it looks shady. They told certain clients that they should call their credit card companies and do chargeback disputes. And again, one of these women like had just bought a home. Another woman had had a baby. I was partly doing this for them. Like they were, helping my business come alive. And so the fact that I was like, oh, I'm the only dummy here, because I was trying to keep it alive for our clients. I was trying to keep it alive for our therapists, but I was suffering and struggling. And I was like, oh, God wants me to stop. It has to be so painful. Every breakup has to be really bad for you to quit.
Yeah. So basically it was this violation by these other two people where you suddenly were like, oh,
this is going to kill me.
Yeah. It's funny.
This is going to kill me.
It's funny because for us with Onward, there was a kind of similar pattern, which I've heard now from a few people. Yeah. There was this day, April 4th, I think Apple announced a competitive product to us. And then, on that day, and I had been, I'd let a bunch of people go and we were down to a smaller team and we were like and I was like, I could not give it up. I was doing kind of the same thing that you were doing. I was, in debt, all this kind of stuff. And I was like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to keep, raising this money and making it happen. And it was that external stimulus that the Apple announcement.
Right, something forces you to stop.
Yeah. And I was resisting it. I resisted it for a little while, and then I was like, oh, yeah, maybe this is a problem, and we got to think of it differently. Yeah. Before, I want to go back to something you said. You think entrepreneurs should be shameless and fearless.
Yeah.
One of the things that I question about that advice that's given is that a shameless, fearless person is a sociopath.
Not necessarily.
We've certainly
There's lots of characteristics, and we've talked about the DSM, Gabe. Yeah. Do not mislead our listeners, but go ahead.
But don't you
there's
think
a few other characteristics.
I get it, but aren't there some things, isn't part of this problem that like when we pattern ourselves on really successful people who are mildly sociopathic or seriously sociopathic, often, like Travis Kalanick, I have no ill will towards him, but him, Mark Zuckerberg, there is a sort of undercurrent of, shameless, fearless, and potentially. I
actually think that like Travis and Mark do have shame, because that's why they always do image control. But there's a difference between like narcissism and like by any means necessary, but to theirs is more about lack of empathy that I think that they're willing for these consequences if it's for the bottom line. But that's not necessarily shameless, because if they didn't have shame, they'd be like Trump. Trump's like, yeah, I said it. Like he really doesn't have shame, but he also, because of his narcissism, tries to spin it to make him look good. So when I say shameless, I mean not being afraid to ask for help, not being afraid to hire somebody who knows more than you. Because there's also sociopaths who would never let that happen.
Right.
And fearless in the fact that you have to be willing to push through fear, because it's a really scary lifestyle. Like it feels like a threat. Yeah.
Do you think though that, so push through is different, I think, than being fearless. There's being fearless, and then there's like acknowledging and recognizing that you are afraid of something and yet deciding to do that. So can you talk about the difference between those things for you?
I used to take boxing lessons from this really hardcore Israeli guy. And I was just like, I'm very honest. I had a nose job, I got on Fifth Avenue and I was just like, I'm scared. I paid a lot for my nose. I don't want you to hit me. I shouldn't have told that story, but he
That's
told me
funny.
something that stuck with me.
Hmm.
He was like, "B, the champions, he like almost played for the Israeli Olympic team. He's like, the champions are great. Everybody who gets in that ring is scared. The winner is the only one who can like block it out. It's the same thing. Like, I mean, everybody is scared. Like, if you weren't scared, you'd be stupid. And we've seen founders like that who are the reason they're fearless is because they don't know how hard it's going to be. The reason they can come in and whip their
Right.
dicks out and be like, this is $1 trillion valuation is because they're dumb. You know, that's not the same as fearless. They don't know that they should be scared and that they should, you know, because I don't think that fear is a bad thing as a therapist. You know, if we look at it from evolutionary psychology, worry protected us. It kept us safe. It meant that, you know, something was around the corner. We had to like double and triple check. Like,
Sure.
it's not saying don't be cautious, but, you know, you have to feel the fear and do it anyway. I've never seen anybody wait until they felt better to do something in that. And because time is of the essence with what we do, you know?
Yeah, that's definitely interesting. I feel like I've often given the advice to people. So, you know, I do a bunch of public speaking, and that's, you know, my
He's
passion.
great at it, y'all. If
Thank
you've
you.
never seen Gabe Zickerman speak, it'll give you goosies.
You're very sweet. Check out GabeZickerman.com and you can watch some of my videos. So, one of the things that I often would tell people is at the beginning of my career doing public speaking, I would say, "Oh, I'm not nervous speaking in public. Like I don't get nervous because," and what I realized was it was because it's not that I didn't get nervous. It's that I didn't have the same somatic response to the nervousness of public speaking as other people seem to have. Like it didn't affect my desire or lack of desire to get up on stage. So no matter how
Right.
afraid I was like, I'm still going to get up on that stage because that's where I love to be. And so the way that I changed it over time, and I wonder if this has any resonance for you, I changed that idea over time to be, well, you should be afraid of the audience not getting your message. You know, that's what I'm afraid of. I'm afraid that I get up there and I'm not going to like forget my words. I'm not going to like fall off the stage. But what if the thing that I'm delivering doesn't land with people? What if it doesn't like, you know, resonate with people? So it's sort of like maybe a little bit about reframing what the fears actually look like.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, because I still get scared about public speaking too, even though like I could talk in public.
You're a great talker.
I'm a great talker, but I'm not a great speaker. So the perfectionist in me wants it to be good. And that happened to me. I actually did when I did my TEDx talk, I can't even watch it because like there was so much going on with the site. It didn't work on mobile. If you watch a talk, I don't even say the name. I was just so ashamed. And I hadn't had time to remember it because like everything was burning down in the company. And it was meant to be 19 minutes, but it was actually 12 minutes. And it was just like a mess, but nobody noticed. And after that, now when I do talks, like I just think it's, one, your body interprets fear and excitement the same way. Like if you can like mentally shift it, you can be like, oh, let's go. That's what adrenaline is, right? And so for me, I have to feel like I'm excited. And if the audience is going to match my energy, they're excited to see me and they want me to do well, you know, because like the things that hold me back is like the fear of rejection, not being taken seriously. I know that I can talk about psychology all goddamn day, you know, like even if I forget it, like I'm going to say some shit that like that you'll probably remember. And I trust that. I just have to like really believe in myself. You know, if I learned anything from Trump, he really believes in himself, like on a cellular level.
That's very funny.
I should believe in myself too.
I'm not sure I want to like, I'm not sure that I want to like quote Trump here. Do we have to though? So also a comment from Carlos, and Carlos and I used to work together. Hi, Carlos. Nice to see you. So some fear can serve as motivation if oriented correctly. Probably helps to keep things moving. Can you talk about some of your fears that maybe animated you in the direction of Pretty, you know, Padded Room?
Yeah, I mean, from Pretty Padded Room to In Your Corner to Now the Difference, there's definitely some scar tissue around, you know, starting another company. This is actually my third company because it was something else I did after grad school. The fear is that that's a good question. The fear is that, you know, I was broke and financial anxiety, and you can relate to, hopefully everybody listening can relate to that. Like if you're not a well-funded founder, and sometimes even if you are, there is this, when you are broke, it's a constant, oh my God, like you're not really there half the time. It's like you feel crippled almost.
Right.
And it just like talk about paralyzing, like actual, like these aren't imagined fears, right? And so realizing that I'm risking putting myself in that situation again. Also, like, you know, it really hurts my feelings and my heart when like this thing I care about the most, all I care about when is like everybody anywhere being able to access a therapist. I really believe in that. So when I get fearful of like, you know, another rejection from an investor I don't even respect that much, like that is fearful. But I also get fearful that if I give up, if I don't do this, like I literally, when I meditate, think of like eventually getting the reports and seeing the minutes, like Emily going, these are how many minutes we did today. These are how many people, somebody being able to find some, like it really just like melts that away. Like, and I'm scared of not doing that or giving it my best shot. And again, like that's my North Star. I care about this very much, obviously. And so I still got to push through. It might not work out, you know, it might not work out, but like I believe in this and I want to give it a shot.
Well, and I think there's an added layer. I've talked about this a little bit for gay people, but I wonder whether or not there's an added layer for people of color or women where, you know, on top of all the normal fear that you have, the normal fears of a failure, of financial ruin, of being embarrassed or whatever, there's also this extra layer where you have to like figure out your model minority bit. You've got to figure out how to blend with people. You're conscious of how people see you all the time. Can you talk a little bit about how you feel like that influences your fear of failure and concern?
Yeah. I mean, that is so real. You know, I mean, the good thing is like once you go through like your self-esteem breaking down after a failure, and it really is below the ocean. Like I can't describe how bad it feels. You know, you have to lift yourself back up. You know, your friends can tell you they love you, your family can tell you you're a star, you know, but you really, if you watch this thing, you know, and you have to accept responsibility for it, it's just a crushing feeling. And I will say there is a lot of pressure. As you know, the numbers for Black female founders are not good.
Yeah.
At women founders, I think less than 2% of venture capital still, even after it's been exposed, only went to female founders. But you have to, one thing that happens when you believe in yourself and you love yourself is you don't let other people's perceptions of you influence how you feel. Like they would tell me that it was too early, right? In my last year without trying, without a single ad spend, I made $419,000. I did that, not my CTO, you know, and I will say what they respect in the Valley is like, I'm sorry, they like nerds who can't sell, you know, like my strength is talking to my consumers, the people who actually need my product. The media fucking loves me. I've been in BuzzFeed, all these things. When I closed my company, I had to send my URL. I went around to all of my competitors. Some of them had never made as much money as me, but they were like, had raised infinity times more money, had 8 times the technical staff that I did. So I did that. So just because they don't value you doesn't mean you're real, doesn't mean you're not popping, you know, and like me trying to be nice and, you know, finagle it into that structure and the profile of what they want didn't work anyway. So I can only be myself. That's what works for me in these areas. They may not love me, but like I love me, you know, and I'm only going to serve that.
We love you. Okay, so we have another question, this time from Ivan. Hi, Ivan. Ivan and I used to work together also. So this is like greatest hits of former people that I've worked with, and actually Ivan is a great guy. So Ivan's question is, how about the motivating features of shame? Like, how does shame motivate behavior? It's difficult, but you know, he says he feels like shame is difficult but effective thing for human experience when you hit that sort of like rock bottom. How did you feel about the failure of, you know, Pretty Padded Room in that time afterwards? Obviously there was all the anxiety and heartache about the violations from your team, but how did you feel about that shame, and how does shame motivate you?
You know, I used to think that actually that shame is a powerful motivator, but like when I look at the world and I see like the outcomes of things that are like, if you look at Facebook, you know, like if we were to believe the social network, apparently he got shamed because this girl rejected him and he started this app to judge her and created all these things. But again, like once that kind of like revenge element or I'm going to prove it to you, you know, comes up, it's like the energy that's with it doesn't go the right way, you know, like then you're already operating at a deficit, right? You have something to prove. Like you won't be satisfied until you reach this negative milestone that the other person doesn't really care about. And I used to think about that with, you know, the Valley. Like I just felt like I wasn't taken seriously out there. And I used to be like, man, when they see me in this ad, you know, like I kept getting things and it was just like, they weren't checking for me, you know? And so like, I don't know. I feel like whenever you do something from a place of want rather than a place of need, your outcomes will always be better, and that's just something that you have to learn the hard way. Like, because those are only temporary goals. Like, if somebody calls me fat, like, I'm not going to go to the gym. Like, if somebody is like, God, B, your glutes workout is popping and your glutes are popping, a woman, so at least say that to me if you're a woman, then yeah, like, I'm going to keep going, so.
That's another really interesting insight. The part where you shift into revenge mode.
Oh God, that's
I'm
real.
going to show them. That feels I've definitely been through that. I feel like I carry that with me all the time.
It's going to last for a long time.
How do you manage that? Like, you personally?
Well, oh yeah. I mean, like, I'm a petty person in general. I'm Petty LaBelle. I will hold on to a grudge forever. Even for real, even with, it's like a dude doesn't like text me back right away. Like, something closes, like, I don't fuck with you. Like, I protect myself. And, but I will say, understanding it from a psychological perspective, two things happen. And that's kind of what you see to make a cultural, analysis in the hood sometimes. If you are raised in really shitty circumstances, if you see death around you, if you don't see hope around you, you get sad. That's a very natural reaction to really abnormal circumstances.
Right.
But the body needs to survive. And when you're sad, when you're weak, it's just like being disabled. You are at risk to be taken advantage of, to get hurt. And so a more powerful emotion is anger. So what you see naturally, if you've been sad for a long time, your body turns on anger. Your thoughts turn to anger just so it can be more motivating. And I actually think every emotion deserves equal respect. Anger can be a powerful motivator. Fear, shame, all those negative things, they have information there. But why am I angry?
Right.
Like, because I felt hurt. That has nothing to do with me. Those elements are gone out of my life now. If I don't think about them, what can I do with that energy? Because anger also has a lot of bandwidth, and like, I'm a happy person. That's who I was before, like, if anytime I engage with that, it just sets me up. So like, I don't have the energy or the time to doing like dope shit,
What do you think, if you had to distill down for folks, what the biggest lesson, now you've had the previous project, you have the current project.
Mm-hmm.
If you have to distill down the lesson, the most important lesson about the failure, or about the friction, or about the issues that happen, what would that be?
Oh man. I would say the two main things. Oof, so many things. Trust your instincts, like, really don't give in to external pressure. Surround yourself with people who you trust. Don't be too understanding to unreliable people. We've both seen, teams can be tanked by one person, like by one
for sure.
bad hire. And like, don't ever feel like you have to depend on someone either, because like, even yourself, like, you have to do what's best for the company if you care about it. You're doing a disservice if you're allowing bad behavior, bad energy around it. Like, trust your instincts. We are the only animals that deny our instincts. It's insane. So, and there's a lot of bad, not all advice is good advice,
Sure.
like, there's a reason a lot of startups fail. There's a lot of bad advice floating around the valley.
Why did you decide to start another company instead of just focusing on your personal skill set and your work?
Well, two things. Like I said, I'm Petty LaBelle. So when I was going around and finding out like people who had raised more money and people who had gotten funded in similar spaces, mm-hmm. and were coming to me for advice and didn't know shit, I was just like, okay, no, like, I'm going to finish what I started. Like, this is my house. I'm the queen of this. Nobody knows it better than me. Clearly what I'm seeing, you know what I mean? So I was just like, no, okay, I got something for y'all. I just didn't like what I saw that was out there. And I had this idea that kept iterating. And just time and trusting the process. This was part of my mourning process, to be honest. Like, I had to believe in myself again. I'm a creator. I had to have a song in my heart again for me to feel aligned with my purpose on this earth. So that's one reason. And also, just the timing of it. I had the name The Difference last year, and it just kept, this idea just has taken so many shapes, but I'm really pleased with where it ended up. So I love it. Like, I would not do it if I didn't think this could be a winner. It might not work out for a number of reasons, but I'm in love with this business. That's who I am.
That's awesome. So B, if people want to follow you and want to find out about your projects, can you give them the salient details?
Yes. Well, my name is B. Arthur. Thanks for joining me. Thanks for having me, Gabe. Mm-hmm. And you can follow me on Twitter at BArthurLMHC. That's licensed mental health counselor. And if you want to see my personal life, it's on Instagram at BBArthur. And then my website is barthurtherapy.com. We're actually redesigning it, so don't go to it yet, but later. And the best part is we just launched the beta for The Difference.
Yes, that's what I was going to ask.
Yeah, so if you want to sign up to be one of our beta testers, we could use you. Our goal is to be able to connect you with a live human therapist within 30 minutes or less, not just with Alexa, but by phone. So go to thedifference.co and sign up. I would love that. So if you know somebody who needs it and you want to buy them like your certificate, it's dope. You're going to like it.
It's thedifference.co. Right?
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, B. Arthur, thank you so much. You know that I love you. I love you even more after today. Thank you for being so vulnerable and open. Thank you to George and Teresa, Carlos, Ivan. Ivan, thanks for the compliment that you like the show so much. We really appreciate you guys watching live. So you got all B's info. You've got my info if you want to follow me at GZICHERM on Twitter. And yes, failosophy.com is how you can follow, you can follow this, and be sure to subscribe to Failosophy on iTunes, Google Play, or wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you so much. Thanks, B. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
If you enjoyed this episode, click subscribe, leave a review, share with your friends, and come back next week for more real talk about failure. And remember, if you're not on the precipice of failure right now, you're not living to your full potential. This has been Failosophy with Gabe Zickerman.